Hi all, I'm Xander. Welcome back. This is part 5 of my 8-part series. So in 2002, mid-2002, I said enough of the New Age, enough of paganism, enough of all the metaphysical stuff, enough. I'm done, and I'm going back to Christianity, but I'm going to do it my way this time. So in mid-2002, I had a lot of work to do because I had accumulated a lot of New Age and occult paraphernalia. So it took me 6 months from mid-2002 to the beginning of 2003 to get rid of all my stuff. The demonic oppression on me was so heavy that it took me 6 months to do all of it, to really get rid of everything and be thorough about it. I had to get rid of books, a lot of books that were not going to be helpful to me anymore, a lot of New Age pagan occult books, a lot of paraphernalia, trinkets. I had to get rid of all of it. And I decided to start new with Jesus. That was just me and Jesus in the Bible. So I did that. I worked on it for 6 months. Did I have a person come back then? No, I had a person later on, a few years later. I had a person from my old church come and anoint my apartment and pray over it to erase any trace of New Age, pagan, occult energy. And I decided once I got rid of all that stuff, it was like night and day for me. It was the energy in the room and my feeling and the energy in my body and my spirit and my mind was just completely different. I was free. Once I got rid of all the stuff, I was free. I felt so free. I felt so good. Really did. And then I decided, I decided at that time in 2002, I decided I was going to focus on the Bible. And I decided that I was going to focus on reading the Bible, but this time I was not going to read it, the Bible, in 1 year. I decided that was not fast enough for me. I decided I was going to read my Bible in 6-month time frames. And so I decided, I went online and I found some 6-month Bible reading plans. I wasn't entirely happy with them, so I started to develop my own 6-month Bible reading plan for myself. And I think I revised that about 5 times until I got it the way I wanted it. And I started reading the Bible in 6 months, which was more my speed. Also, I started attending a Bible Baptist church, which is a very conservative, Bible-oriented denomination. But I decided that I wanted to learn. I wanted to be in a church where they were actually teaching the Bible. And this particular pastor in my area, Bible Baptist pastor, he was teaching the Bible. He was doing what my other pastor should have been doing. Also, I explored the Methodist church. I left the Episcopalian church that I was attending, and I decided to attend the Methodist church. I did a few times, but I wasn't entirely happy with it. So I stopped doing that. Also in 2002, I had moved back in with my parents, I think, in 2002 for a while, and I was getting depressed again. I had depression all through my 20s with my mom's emotional abuse, and I was starting to get depressed again. And one night I had an experience. I had what's called a spiritually transformative experience. Look it up on the internet, STE, spiritually transformative experience. This is a real thing. And in my STE, I went to bed one night. I had been feeling depressed about my family situation. Things were going on that should not have been going on with my parents and I, between my parents and I. And I was depressed about it. And one night, I was getting ready to go to bed, and I noticed there was a tightness in my chest. But the tightness wasn't in my chest. The tightness was around my chest. It was around my chest area here, the top. And it felt like somebody had put a big rubber band around my chest area and all around my back. And that they were tightening it and tightening it and tightening it and tightening. And I began to be concerned for my health, right? I began to think that this was a health problem and maybe I was having a heart attack. And I was getting ready to go to bed. I had my pajamas on, and I was like, what should I do? Should I get dressed and drive myself to the emergency room, or should I stay here and possibly unalive due to a heart issue? I didn't know what to do, and I decided, because I was so depressed, I decided I'm going to go to bed. I decided I'm not going to go to the hospital. I'm going to go to bed. I got my jammies on. I'm going to go to bed. And if God takes me, he takes me. It's okay. I was that depressed about my family situation that I was actually okay with having a heart attack and leaving my body for good. Okay? It's 2002. And there was stuff going on between my parents and I that was very unpleasant, very bad. And that's why I was depressed. So I go to sleep, fall asleep with the tightness around my chest. And after a while of being asleep, I'm in another place. I'm back out there among the stars. Only I'm in a place I don't recognize anymore. It's I am being held by a hand out in space, and I'm inside a cloud. It was a white cloud. And inside the white cloud were sparkles, different colored sparkles. Red, blue, green, yellow, the primary colors. And I'm being held by this hand. I'm like a Fay Ray in the movie King Kong. If you watch that movie, you'll know what I'm talking about. Fay Ray, King Kong picks her up and she passes out, right, on his hand. And that's the way I was. I was like almost passed out on this hand that was holding me. And for a split second, my consciousness split off from my body and I could see what was going on. That there was this cloud, and out of the cloud came the hand that was holding me. And I was lying there on my back on this hand in the middle of this cloud. And what I felt, I didn't hear a voice, I didn't see a person, I didn't see a deity, I didn't see an angel. I felt love. I felt a feeling I had never felt before in my life. It was unconditional acceptance and love. And if you listen to people who have had near-death experiences, they will tell you about this love that they feel on the other side. They explain it the same way that I felt it. It was like this force that was coming out towards me. It was like this flow or this force that was coming out on me, and it was overwhelming me. It was washing over me. And it was overwhelming. It was, and I was in what I would call a state of ecstasy. It was not just even overwhelm, it was ecstasy. And if you read what Catholic mystics, when you read about Catholic mystics and Catholic saints who talk about being in a state of ecstasy, that's what they're talking about. They're talking about experiences that they've had similar to what I had, where God overwhelms you with his love to the point that you're in a state of ecstasy or rapture. You're just completely overwhelmed with it. And you feel love. You feel what God's unconditional love feels like. And it's like nothing you've ever felt in your life. And I feel that God took me out of my body and did that for me because he knew that I was in the depths of depression and that I needed that. And that I needed to know that in the midst of that situation, I was loved unconditionally. It helped for a while, but it wore off. So that happened in 2002. Also, in 2002, my dog died. Now, she was not technically my dog. She was my dad's dog. However, she and I bonded, I would say, she and I bonded probably a year before she died. We bonded really tight. Her name was Bianca. This is Bianca. This is what she looked like. She was a Maltese, female. My dad did something that was irresponsible with the dog. And she got into some water that was tainted with chemicals, poisonous chemicals to her. And she got cancer. She had cancer of the mouth and the throat. And it killed her. It unalived her. And in 2002, she got sick during that summer of 2002, and she died a few months later. And we knew that she was on her way out, but that doesn't make it any easier with your fur friends. And she was my friend. She was my best friend at that time. And I even called her girlfriend. She liked it when I called her girlfriend. That was my name for her. And she knew that was my name for her. And we were like this. And I took care of her for a few months before she died. I took her to my apartment and took care of her while my father went off and played with his boats. Didn't want to take care of her himself, so he gave her to me. So I said, I'll take her and I'll give her her medicines. And we bonded. And unfortunately, in fall of 2002, my mom took over from me, taking care of the dog, and she was told by a vet that if the dog got too bad to take her in and they would euthanize her. So that's what happened. One day in fall 2002, I was living with my parents by that time, and my mom took the dog without me knowing. She took the dog to the vet, and the vet put her down. They euthanized her. But my mom didn't tell me that she was going to take the dog to be euthanized. And that particular day, I slept in. I overslept, which is not normal for me. I sleep a lot, but not like that. I didn't sleep like I did that day. That day I slept until 12 noon. And when I woke up with a start. I woke up out of a deep sleep, like somebody woke me up. I didn't wake up gradually. I woke up suddenly. And I was in bed, and I got up on my hands, and I went, she's gone. I could feel her. I could feel that she was not here anymore. So yeah. And then I found out later that she was gone. So Bianca and I had that connection spiritually. I think that she came around and woke me up and let me know that she was not here anymore. I think it was her. She visited me a couple of times after she passed. I won't go into the details on that. Anyways, so I started reading my Bible on a 6-month basis, once every 6 months. I started attending a Bible Baptist church, which really helped me. I learned a lot there from that pastor. And I went a few times to a Methodist church, but it was not my thing. In mid-2004, in July 2004, I decided that I needed to be in a church on a regular basis. I didn't think that just staying home with my Bible and God was enough. And I started to get antsy to be back in a church again. And so I talked to a friend of mine, a former lady from my former church, and she said, why don't you go back to that church, my old church? She said, why don't you go back? She said, they're Bible-based, so you can't go wrong. She and her husband stopped attending for other reasons, but she said, why don't you go back? So I decided in mid-2004 to go back to my old church, to give it one more try. And so I attended that church for 9 months, from July 2004 until March 2005. And I attended every Sunday. I was there, like a good little church member. And in 2005, early 2005, I took a class there in the spiritual gifts, because I was still into the charismatic gifts of the Holy Spirit. I learned a lot. And I also attended a prayer meeting. They had a once a week or once a month prayer meeting at the church. And I started going in the dead of winter to these prayer meetings. And I didn't participate very much. I just prayed quietly. They knew that I had been there for a while, but nobody talked to me, and I didn't talk to them. I just attended. And so what happened there was in March 2005, there was a man that was part of the prayer meeting. And to preface this, in 2004, in November or December of 2004, I had a couple of dreams that were prophetic. And I know that I have prophetic dreams because the things that happen in them are just not normal. And in these two prophetic dreams that I had in probably late November 2004, I had these two dreams back to back. And in the first dream, I was on a river. I was like in this tropical area, and I was on a boat going down this narrow river, and it was surrounded by trees, beautiful, lush green trees, but it was tropical. It wasn't northern, it was southern. Anyways, I got off this boat and I went up these steps. This was not a normal dream. I went up these 4 steps, and I was looking over some trees or over some bushes. I was looking over something. And I looked over and I saw this vision of, I saw this town. And it looked like a South Asian town to me. It looked like, well, I wasn't sure what part of South Asia it was. I just knew it was South Asia. Okay. And I saw this building. It was this big building, and I saw, looked like it was from South Asia, and I saw this man, South Asian man. He was walking by the building, down the side of the building, and there was water almost up to his knees in this town, and he had his pants rolled up because of the water. And he was walking through water that was almost up to his knees in this little South Asian town. And I thought, oh, this is interesting, okay. And then I had a second dream, and the second dream was really rough. In the second dream, I was in the middle of a town, like an intersection or a street, and there was water coming up. And I decided that I was going to go up into this house. There was a house that was on stilts. It was this like 2nd-story house that was on tall stilts. So it was above the water. So I decided to go into the house. I got to the steps of the house and climbed up the steps and got into the house, and I was there alone at first. And I looked out the window, and what I saw was really disturbing to me. And what I saw was there was water. There was just this wall of water flowing by the house down the street, and it was carrying debris with it. It was carrying cars, furniture, all sorts of things. Just debris from parts of houses. It was just carrying debris, and it was swirling. The water was swirling as it was moving down the street. And it was chaotic. And people started coming into the house after me to escape the water. I was the first person in, but there were other people who came into the house to escape that water. That swirling, it just filled the street. It was everywhere. And that was my second dream. And that was in November 2004. And about 3 weeks later, on December 26, 2004, is when the Indian Ocean tsunami happened. And I happened to be in church that day. I was in church, in my old church, and I didn't know that it had happened. And the pastor was a new pastor. It wasn't my old pastor anymore. He had retired. But it was a new pastor, and the pastor stopped the service, and he announced that this Indian Ocean tsunami had happened in Southeast Asia. And when I heard it, I remembered the dreams, and I fell to my knees. Me and a bunch of other people, we fell to our knees in prayer. I was heart-stricken, just heart-stricken, because my dream had come true. Yeah, it was hard. It's hard. So that happened in 2004. So to preface that, in March 2005, I was at this prayer meeting, and this man at the prayer meeting, he was an Indian American. So he was kind of affected by it because he was originally from India, but he was an American now. And he said to the group, when they asked for prayer requests, he said, well, the tsunami has happened and people need a lot of aid. And he said, I think that what should happen here is that is that the people at this church should sell the church building. Now, you got to understand, by this point, the church is huge. The church facility is enormous, okay? He said, I think they should sell the church building and they should use the proceeds from the sale of the church to help the victims of the Indian Ocean tsunami. That we should use that for humanitarian aid. And I remember thinking, God bless him. What a guy, right? What a heart, right? I'm not, I was not sold on churchianity anymore. I was only in church because I felt I needed it, but not because I was into church. And I thought, what a great heart this guy has. That's so sweet, so loving, right? And I thought to myself, these people are not going to be happy with that, right? They're not going to be happy with that because these are church people. And by that point, I wasn't a church person anymore. So I thought, what a sweetheart, but they're not going to like his idea. And I was right. They didn't like his idea at all. And in fact, I learned during and after that meeting, I learned how against the idea they were. First of all, a woman who I knew from the church spoke up and she began to lecture him from the Bible. She found some Galatians, Ephesians, Philippians, she found some chapter in the Bible that she thought would push back against his idea. And she read the entire chapter to him as a lecture on why he was wrong. Okay? That's the first thing. And I thought, boy, these people, their hearts are in the wrong place. If they think that sticking to the Bible is more important than helping people, they've got their priorities wrong. That's what I was thinking. So anyways, the prayer meeting ended, and I go out into the lobby, because you have to go out. We had to go out into the lobby first before we left the building. And I was looking at some brochures that were on a table in the lobby of the church. I wasn't talking to any of the participants of the prayer meeting, but a bunch of them were hanging around where I was hanging around. And I was looking at some brochures and stuff, and I hear this woman behind me praying. And I turn around, and there's the Indian man, and there's this woman from the church who I didn't recognize, and she's standing right up against his face. She's got one hand on his head and the other hand on his shoulder, and she's looking him right in the face. And she's praying for him. And she's praying that God will show him the error of his ways. That God will show him how wrong he is about these things. And she will not stop praying for this guy, that God will show him how wrong he is. And at that point, I was really offended that here this guy, his heart is in the right place. He just wants to help people, right? Who are suffering and in need because of the tsunami. And this church lady gets right up into his face and uses prayer to make him back down. And that really upset me. And I said, this is not good. And I realized, being an empath and feeling the energy of things, I realized I can't stay in this church anymore, because now with the lady reading him the Bible chapter and the lady getting in his face and using prayer to intimidate him. Now they're using the tools of Christianity, the Bible and prayer, to intimidate a guy who has good intentions. And this is not right. I thought, this is not right. I have to leave. It's time for me to leave. So I walked out of that church and I never went back. That was March 2005. Okay? So then I started to get online, and I found this guy. Let me go get it. Just a minute. I'll be right back. Be right back. Okay. So, I get online and I start Google searching people who are out of church, because now I was an out-of-church Christian. And I didn't know where to go or what to do. And I find Andrew Strom. I find this guy named Andrew Strom. He's from New Zealand, I think. And he has this book online called The Out-of-Church Christians. There's the book. And I start reading his book online. And I read it. I read the whole thing. And I realized I'm not alone. I'm not alone. That there are other people out there. There are many other people out there like me who have left the church for various reasons, who do not want to go back anymore. They don't want to leave God. They don't want to leave Jesus. They just don't like the church. They don't like what it's become anymore. And Andrew wrote this book. It started back in, I think he said 1999. He was on a talk show in New Zealand, and he was talking about out-of-church Christians and why people leave. And people started calling in. He was like on a Christian talk show in New Zealand, and people started calling in. No. He gave out his email address, and he said, if you have a story of why you left the church, please send it to my email. And he gave his email address. And he got flooded with emails from people from all over the world. Eventually, it was all over the world. People who were no longer in church, but still Christian, who had left for various reasons and did not want to go back. They were not leaving Christianity the way I did back in 1994. They were not leaving. They wanted a better experience, and they wanted a deeper experience of Christianity, which actually is the first reason that I left my church in 1994. So he wrote this book called The Out-of-Church Christians, and he put it online back in 2002. And I read it in April 2006, and I printed the whole thing, and I still have it. Here it is. My 52 pages of stories of people who left the church for one reason or another, didn't want to leave God, didn't want to leave Jesus, but they just couldn't stand the church anymore. So I realized I was not alone. And the statistics that Andrew quoted indicated that there are about 1 million people worldwide each year who leave their churches and never come back. So, am I alone? No, I'm not. I'm in good company. I have a lot of company. And this goes on year after year after year. Okay? So by 2006, I didn't know what to do. I read Andrew's book and I was conflicted. I wanted to be in a church, but there were problems. Primary among them, evangelicalism. Okay? So I decided, no, I'm going to find myself a church. I'm going to find myself a church that speaks to me, where the pastor is on the same page as me, so that I don't have any conflicts anymore, right? So I went on a campaign. I found 245 churches in the Syracuse, New York area, not in Syracuse proper, but around, in Syracuse and around, 245 churches. I decided I was going to ask them questions that I had not asked my first pastor, that I should have asked. I came up with about 35 questions. I typed up a questionnaire, printed out 245 copies, put them in 245 envelopes, put 245 stamps on them, and sent them out. Because I was going to find myself a church if it made me go broke. What happened was about 30 to 35 questionnaires came back from the pastors. I found 6 of them that I liked, 6 pastors whose answers I liked, and I decided to meet with them one-on-one and interview them. Because I thought, this is what I should have done with the first pastor. I should have asked him what he believed before I joined the church. And I recommend this. You should really do it. You should make it like a job interview, put these people through their paces. Because this is important stuff, your spiritual life, your religious life. So I interviewed all 6 men, and at the end, I wasn't satisfied with any of them. And it broke my heart. I was literally heartbroken. Also during 2006, I decided to address my past spiritual issues, my past involvement with the New Age and the occult. I decided, so I bought the book by Neil T. Anderson called The Steps to Freedom in Christ. And I went through that book, I think it was 2006. I went through that book step by step, chapter by chapter, and I did all the renunciations. I renounced everything in the New Age, everything I had done in the New Age, everything I had done in the occult. I renounced all of it. I renounced paganism, witchcraft, even though I hadn't even done witchcraft. I had just read about it. I renounced it. Just to be safe. I renounced my great uncle, his involvement in Freemasonry, even though it had never touched me. I renounced it as a family generational thing. I renounced my great-grandmother's stregoria, her Italian witchcraft, even though it had never been passed down to me. They had never... she might have passed it down to my grandmother, but my grandmother never passed it down to my mom, I don't think. And my mom definitely never passed it down to me, but I renounced it just to be safe, right? I did all of that. I did all the renunciations I could think of. Went through that book with a fine-tooth comb, wrote down everything that I might have been involved in, even tangentially, renounced all of it, and I felt good, right? I felt really good. I also had I didn't do that. While I was in my former church, from 2004 to 2005, I had a lady from the church come and anoint my apartment, anoint it with oil, and pray and invoke the Holy Spirit to come and be in my apartment and drive all the demonic influences away. So that happened. Also in 2006, I took my vow of celibacy, lifelong celibacy. So I am a religious celibate. I did my vow in 2006. And that is it for this part of the series. So I'll continue in another video. Thank you for listening. God bless. Bye-bye.